to Magrathea Build World. Long time no see. This is going to be a little video about Arkworld. Yes, it is. First of all, apologies to everybody that I've been a bit thin on the ground recently when it's come to video content. Not surprising really, it's been absolutely bonkers in my real world, in my life, my actual job in the last little while, having gone from living in Viking villages and being a storyteller to great big Guinness World Record events in Greenwich to massive vampire ball at the Natural History Museum for Halloween. It's been very time-consuming time. And subsequently, I found it very difficult to sit down and actually make videos, complete modelling projects, that kind of thing. I've now got several things on the go that I'm trying to get all together and try and get different videos done. And it looks like, although I'm going to have a very busy time the run into the end of the year, when of course I will be mostly making advantage of my fabulous beard, that's Father Christmas, I want to get a bunch of modelling stuff done as well. Thank you very much for those of you who joined me on my very first live stream on YouTube back in October. I'm going to do another one very soon, probably this coming weekend. That's going to make it about the, I don't know, the 15th or 16th of November. Watch out for that. I haven't decided what I'm going to do on that yet, but if I really enjoyed sitting online chatting with people, 2.5 hours or whatever it was, absolutely flew by. It was really cool. Anyway, thank you for sticking with me, if you've stuck with me. If you haven't stuck with me, you're not watching this video, so from that point of view, but why are we here today? Well, look, in beginning of October, a month ago now, myself and my friends from my gaming group from Spirit of the Game, that's little Ted and Gary and his son Harry of Fable Fae, came with me to Newark to the Other Partizan. We took our vertical Burrows and Badgers games, and we were delighted to win an award. Yes, we did. We won the best participation game at the Other Partizan. We were really pleased with that, especially as when we arrived there wasn't a space in the kind of like they hadn't. It looked fine on a map, but then when it came to real life, there wasn't enough space for our participation game to be in the participation zone. And we ended up in the demo zone, right next to the gaming table of master model maker Dave Andrews, who I used to get to hit and be hit by in the 15th century. So we didn't think we were going to be that busy from a participation game point of view. We were. We had loads and loads of people stop by, took loads of interest in our games that we were running, which is really cool. Credit really from winning the best participation game really has to go to Harry, number one, Gary, secondly, and Ted, third of all, because I don't actually think I've played a single game all day. I did speak to an awful lot of people in the hobby world though. So from that point of view, it was really cool. We won best participation game, and then Dave Andrews and his mob next door won best demo game. So it was obviously a good place to be. Anyway, whilst we were at that event, we made an effort to go out and look at the stands. I don't often get a chance to do that when I'm a big show, but this time round we did. Ted first, and then Harry and Gary. They all went disappearing off around the show, and they all came back raving about this game I had to go and see. My gaming group, Spirit of the Game, and initially just under the Magrathea banner, was formed to play B&B, and it's me, 3 dads and 4 lads, and it's a really cool kind of like little group. It's not a club, it's just a group of friends who play, and it started off very much a case of because Tim wanted to play B&B and he was busy making all this scenery. We've played other games since, of course. Just Dread has been a big one. But it is very much a democracy. I'm very keen for us to play other kinds of games. And both individually, Ted and Harry came back going, you've got to go and have a look at Arkworld. It looks fucking brilliant. So I did. When I got a chance, I went off to go to the Arkworld stand, Warp Miniatures, and met Alex Huntley. Hi, Alex. We got chatting about skirmish games and scenery and all kinds of things. Hopefully there might be some Arcworld projects for Warp Miniatures in the future. Alex gave me a couple of bits. I bought a bunch of stuff, including this beautiful Arcworld art book, background and stuff. Great book. was encapsulated captured by the miniatures. The miniatures are really lovely, small war bands. Yeah, it's cool. So we kind of all scuttled off with different bits of Arkworld stuff, which actually we've come home and painted quite a lot. I found it very cool as a kind of like a palette refresher in many ways. Recently I've been painting a lot of B&B figures, trying to get all of them done, and I really quite enjoyed painting some other stuff. Arkworld figures have got very much an old Hammer / Terry Pratchett kind of feel, which is kind of neat. So I really like them. So what we did was we're going, right, we kind of need to get into this. Having come home from the show, I purchased the starter set. There are a number of starter sets. There's a smaller starter set with 2 undead warbands in it, and then there's a larger starter set which is labelled kind of like suitable for 1 to 4 players, which I bought. Ted chipped in. He's had the Imperials out of it. So first of all, what I thought we'd do is we'd have a look at what you get in the starter box. Check this out. Okay, so let's have a look at what is in the Arkworld Battle for Troll Bridge box set. Now this is one of 2 starter sets that you can get for Arkworld. There's the Battle for Troll Bridge, which is tagged up as a 3 to 4 player starter set, which is pretty cool. And there's also the Duel of the Dead 2 player starter set, which includes 2 undead warbands, a vampire warband and an ancient dead warband, which looks pretty cool. But this is 3 to 4 players. First of all, beautiful artwork, nice box like this, and you'll notice it says, or you probably can't because it ain't close enough, this is resin here. Resin. You got a choice of resin or metal when you buy this particular set. We'll talk more about that in a minute. I went for resin. I thought it would be interesting to see what the resin figures come out as. They're kind of like fairly crisp. We'll have a look. So nice little box, like this very much. And then a welcome card. Thank you for your purchase. Warp Miniatures do 3D printable figures as well, available from my mini factory, and this actually gives you a 20% off existing 3D printing range, which is pretty cool. So you can get STLs as well as the actual figures direct from Warp. Now, Battle for Troll Bridge, this is clearly the bridge that you can play across, so you can get playing straight away. Even if you don't have terrain, you can play on a flat table surface, which is nice. Cool rulebook, very cute. Nice. Normally, it is decent, quite a decent contents looking like it, but Fantasy Miniatures Game Edition 2.2. You can get a downloadable version of this core rulebook again from the Warp Miniatures website as a PDF, but actually it makes quite a nice little book. I love rulebooks, I really do, and this is different to a lot of other rulebooks because this is core rules, nice hand-drawn kind of diagrams and bits and pieces, and all the systems that you need there. There's a lot of playability and variation and opportunity for you to sandbox your own game by the looks of things with Arkworld. So we'll spend a little while talking about these a bit later. There's also then the scenario pack, Battle for Troll Bridge. Let's have a butchers in here. Arkworld is a narrative battle game where warbands, heroes and monsters pit against each other in field of combat. Okay, so we've got QR codes here. This QR code is for the core rules. Okay, so we've got a little introduction to the actual scenario here. There's a QR code that will take you to the core rules on the Arkworld website if you haven't already got, although you've got the core rules in here, of course. Common armory list, Arcanite tokens, shield equipment, spear equipment, heavy armor, blah blah blah. Then there are 3 factions in this book, in this box. There are the Halflings, the Imperials, and the Orcs. Let's going to call them Orcs. I don't care what it says. Our Orc. I mean, we will have to spell Orc differently these days. And again, the faction rules for all of these and don't come in fancy army books. They come in downloadable PDFs again on the Arkworld website, which I really like. Then rules for Old Grog, the River Troll. Beneath the infamous troll bridge dwells the infamous old Grog, a river troll of such size and aggressiveness his bellows are known and feared for miles around. Traits and equipment. All rules about old Grog. Scenario battle for troll bridge. It's a scenario for solo play as well. Cool. Okay, that's pretty neat. Starting the game, behaviour rolls. Right, so that's a nice little thing there. Making ranged attacks. Everything you need there to get on with. In details, and then your credits page. And then we get down to figures. So what we've got here, we've got the 4 factions and some what are called Arcanite tokens. They're pretty cool. So let's have a look at the 4 factions. I'm probably going to bring my camera in closer to see these. We've got a baggie which has got resin halflings. Nice. Then there are the orcs, the Imperials, the troll, who is massive, and these are Arcanite tokens. Then another bit of foam, and an empty box. Alright, okay, so let's bring this down here and have a closer look at each of these factions, shall we? So this is the battle for Troll Bridge. Let's take a look at the troll first of all. He comes with a resin base that is getting on for 6.5 centimeters across. Pretty cool. And then he is in 4 parts. A few bits of trimming need to be done. There's the odd bit sticking out there, although that looks deliberate. The odd sticky out bit, but yeah, I mean on the whole, I don't think he's going to be particularly complicated to stick together. Really nice, crisp detail on this model. Let's just see if we can zoom in on the main dude. Nice, crisp looking face. My fingernails are really nicely in focus, but I don't know about the troll. And then one leg moulded to a lump of rock and another leg which is going to stick on nice and easy there. A little bit of trimming I think is going to be required, but not a great deal. Pretty easy for anybody who's a relatively competent, relatively straightforward model job. And what I initially thought were things that looked like they need trimming actually look like they're spear shafts or arrowheads or whatever stuck in this troll, and he's completely ignoring the fact that he's hurt. So this is a really cool looking model. He's got ropes where he's being tethered up and trying to be held onto by monster hunters. I can't wait to start sticking this guy together and painting him my Let's have a look at the humans. The humans in this range are called Imperials, and this little warband of humans comes with, first of all they get 30mm round bases, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, let's put him over there, 5 soldiers and a monkey. Eek, 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 eek. Which is pretty cool. Powder monkey, I believe. And these are quite nice looking things. Just zoom back in on here. Let's see if we can do this. So here we have obviously the hero. They're in kind of like pseudo Napoleonic fantasy kind of stuff. They're wearing armour as well as shakos or Napoleonic caps. Nice crisp detail on these resin figures. They don't have the heft that I like with a metal figure, but actually the detail is really lovely. Not overly cluttered, and don't think it's going to take too much painting to make a really nice looking paint job. So there's our hero, which is pretty cool. Then we've got 2 guys who are armed with muskets, Arcanite muskets I think they're called. because they have a bit of glowy Arcanite. Arcanite is the magical element of this game. Nice resin, so a little bit of a bend in that gun barrel, but you know, no more so than you often get in metal figures. And compared to some resin for some companies, figure companies recently, these are quite, I think they've got the balance right between a realism and fantasy, which means that in this case the muskets are quite chunky. There are figures from other ranges made of similar kind of materials where that musket would be vulnerable and get broken in no time at all. And I think this is going to be a bit more robust. So there's a guy standing shooting his musket. There's a bloke soldier with his musket. Whoop, there he is, kneeling down. I love kneeling figures. I don't know what it is about kneeling figures. They're so dynamic. Nice Napoleonic looking cap, but he's wearing a kind of like metal breastplate in bits and pieces, which is pretty cool. Then there's a dude with a long shafted pike or spear. I'm staggered at how good quality the focus is on my fingers again. Yeah, nice. So these are really cool. Nice thing about this cast is the fact there's no mould lines on or anything else, which is really good. Bases need a tiny bit of trimming up to go on their base, but actually that would help you locate that there. And then there's one guy who's got sword and buckler, which is not a kind of weapon combination you'd expect to see with this guy in uniform. So still getting it that nice fantasy twang. And like I said, the powder monkey, and I believe the powder monkey gets used during the game. I haven't read all the faction rules, but he's for rearming and reloading your dudes as you're playing. So again, smashing little faction. Nice. I like games, as I've never kept it a secret. I like to play a game where that number of figures is a playable thing. It's kind of cool. Yeah. So what's that? 6 models means I can get playing, which is cracking. Which for somebody who's not a prolific painter like me, I reckon I can get those 6 done quite quickly. So from that point of view, I could be up and playing because I have to play with painted figures. Okay, not that I'm going to be painting these ones because Ted is having these figures, so which is kind of cool. Let's get rid of these guys and let's find a different faction that we're going to put out. Next faction then are the Orcs. Now it's really interesting when you make when somebody tries to write a new fantasy system and they want to use a lot of the kind of like classic fantasy type creatures you get, and how do you put a new spin on a classic fantasy figure like an orc, and how do you go with it? Now these orcs obviously owe a lot to Games Workshop heritage with big jutty out jaws and huge teeth and all the rest of it, but we have the Orc Dream Eater. This is the kind of like leader of the warband. Really lovely figure. That's going on about, what's that, a 40mm round base. He's going to be a lot of fun. He's standing on a bunch of skulls. He's got magical stuff going on. So the Dream Eater is some kind of wizard of some description. Having read a few bits about the orcs, these are the guys who are really in charge. You do get orc chieftains who think they're in charge, but these guys are really in charge. Then along with that, we've got an orc brute with a 2-handed weapon. Really nice dynamic pose for this dude, running along with a whacking great big double-handed axe, but he's mostly skin, pair of trousers and boots and a bloody great big axe. He's not going to take a massive amount of painting, so I'm super excited to have a go at these orcs. And then the little guys in the orc faction, they're not called goblins, these are boglins, and we've got 2 boglins with ranged weapons. So one boglin with a torch and one boglin with a familiar. So let's see what we got. Okay, so the ranged weapons, that's really nice. So this is a boglin looking like a bit of a redneck. The orcs are famous for brewing. That's their main role. They brew and make fungus beers and all sorts of other things. I think there's a certain amount of kind of deep south redneck stills kind of going on hidden in the swamps and kind of stuff with these guys. So these guys look like they're kind of like dungaree wearing slouch hat types. And this little boglin has got a sling with a stone in it, which is really cool. It's nice to see that kind of weapon. And along with that, this little boglin has slung his sling, which is quite nice. Again, a really dramatic kind of pose. Resin really lends itself to that, which is really great. This boglin, obviously, must hang out with the wizard, I should imagine. He's got a totem, but kind of like staff oozing kind of like magic spells out of it and all the rest, and he's geared up with loads of kit to hang out with the Dream Master, Dream Eater, and then there's this Boglin again. What's that on his back? Lunch. It looks like he's carrying lunch on his back, some kind of fish. Yeah, he's got a fish slung over his shoulder and a burning torch. Nice. Lots of lovely detail, crisp, clear detail on these resin figures, but not overcrowded. So again, they're not going to be really super challenging to paint, which I like because I'm going to get them done. I am going to paint the orcs. This dude with the brute. The only interesting thing with resin here is it underneath, and it was probably the same with metal. You can see underneath there's a big bit of resin between the orc's thighs and his axe handle. I don't know whether I'm going to cut that out or just paint that black and ignore that to support it, but it looks a bit weird, so I'll probably cut some of that out. So that's another really cool looking faction. The fourth faction, and these are halflings. Now, I love a halfling. Always loved halflings. Love hobbits. Halflings in this game are a bit dwarfy compared to many. Don't appear to be any dwarfs in Arkworld. The halflings have part of that role, so they partly have classic halfling kind of roles, and then they also have they're the industrious ones. They're the ones who are chopping down the forest and upsetting other people. Halfling starter warband has a halfling sheriff, who's this dude who is very similar in style to Warhammer, Old Hammer, 3rd, 4th, 5th edition halflings, classic workshop halflings. Great fun, standing on a pile, a bag of coins, nice. And then we've got two halflings armed with ranged weapons. So we've got two dudes with crossbows, which are really nice, which is something you don't often see halflings with. So two halflings with crossbows. We got two halflings with shields. So we've got swords. So we've got one who's armed with a axe and shield, and one who's armed with a mace or a maul. These are really nice little models. And then we got two with torches. I'm taking it. Torches have got a real purpose in this game. I mean, they're just exploring in a magical forest. It's deep and dark and horrible. So two halflings with torches there, and a trollhound who's going to give you a bit of an added punch, I think. So I really like all four of these factions. The halflings, I've got to confess, when I met Alex Huntley, the creator of this game, at Partizan recently, he gave me a set of halflings, but they were metal ones, so I thought it would be interesting to have a look at, and I based them. I based the halflings, and then I decided that actually we were going to buy this box set, so I was like, oh no, because I'm going to get resin ones and stuff. So I thought might be interesting for a moment would be just to compare the resin halfling sheriff and the metal halfling sheriff. I think this is partly kind of horses for courses, really. Some people like resin, some people like metal. So interestingly, I think that the detail on the resin figure is slightly better, it's crisper. The metal one will paint up absolutely fine. I don't think I'll have any problem at all. But this dude, I think, is just that little bit crisper, sharper detail. The metal one will have the definite advantage, I think, of being that little bit more robust. And they're all one kind of like pose figures, which is kind of cool. And you can elect to buy either the resin box set or the metal box set in a number of things. I don't know. I'm getting the impression that the resin ones are limited because on the website, some options for resin are no longer there. You can't get the resin beast men anymore. And I have also bought myself these guys who are halfling goat riders, and there are no resin options for them. So I'm taking it once they're gone, they're gone. Although I could be wrong, they might get restocked. Who knows? I'll have to ask. The resin ones are a more expensive figure than the metal ones, and I suppose that's because the casting method is more complicated, and you do get a slightly better quality figure too. So this box set in resin is £110, and if you have the metal version, it's only £90. So there is definitely a difference there from that point of view. Obviously 20 quid difference, which makes a difference if you're buying quite a lot of these things. A lot of the figures on the site are resin. Let's have a look at a couple of other figures that I've already got and painted too. This is one I've actually done some painting. I'm really pleased with this dude. I don't know how well he's going to come out on camera. This is Bruno Focaccia, who is a special character. He's a hired sword. He's a famous halfling lover and swordsman, and it's a gorgeous little model. I really enjoyed painting this figure, which is unusual for me to say. I don't have to say that, but I did. Took 2 or 3 hours to paint just one little dude on his barrel, but yeah, again, the resin detail on this figure is really cracking. It's, for me, it's interesting because these have all got a definite comic kind of feel to them, which I'm taking a little while to get my head around. I normally like my figures to be far more serious. These have got a certain light-hearted whimsy to them, which is really cool. So those of you who are followers of my channel and like a whimsical game like B&B and like Moonstone, here's another great looking game full of whimsy. Add to that, this is a forest troll that I've also enjoyed painting this week. I bought this at Partizan as well. This is a lovely mould. So the big beasts and this guy, like the Trollbridge troll. The Trollbridge troll looks even bigger, to be honest. But he's a really cool model. He's stamping. There's a halfling hiding in a little hole by a fallen tree trunk there. He's getting trodden on by this troll. The troll, I think, is even completely oblivious to the fact that the halfling is there. Loads of lovely detail on this. So yeah, well pleased with this. So I'm thinking that I found another game that I'm going to get a lot of fun out of, because you don't need much. The buy-in to get people playing in this game is not very much at all. As I say, the buy-in, what you need to get you going, is not very expensive. This is £110, this box set, which to me at times sounds like quite a lot of money. But actually, you could get 4 people playing with this game. Certainly, from my point of view, 3 people. You could get playing this game with 3 factions, and then I'd be keeping the troll for myself as well. And that means that for 25 quid a head, or certainly 33 quid a head, 3 people can get in. You can get 1 hard copy of the rule book in it, and you get more free downloads off the website. So there aren't that many games these days where the buy-in is, you know, that low, which is really cool. You can definitely use your existing fantasy scenery if you like, although the whole point of Magrathea Builder Worlds doing this is the fact that I'm going to make a load of scenery for Arkworld. There will be some crossover without a doubt, but again, this encourages me to do other things, and I'm going to make use of Hobbit terrain and various other bits and pieces. It's well worth diving into. It's also worth pointing out that this box set, Battle for Trollbridge, like I said, in resin is 110 quid. If you bought the components individually, that's the 3 main warband factions. They would cost you £135 alone in resin. They're £45 a set from a resin point of view. Only £35 if you buy the metal ones, but then the savings you get are equivalent anyway. So £135 worth of resin warbands. The troll here doesn't appear to be available anywhere else on the website, but this troll, who is slightly smaller and an equivalent model, but he's, you know, a forest troll, he is £28. So if this troll even retailed at £28, we're now up to 163 quid, and if you buy the core rules yourself, that's another £12, so that's £175. Plus you're getting little bridge, the Arcanite tokens, and the scenario book. So you're probably looking at £180 worth of stuff for 110 quid. So it's a really, really good buy from that point of view. You're saving a lot of money. It's a really good way into this kind of game. So yeah, certainly well worth thinking about. So where are we going to go with this Arkworlde thing? Well, first of all, for those of you who play and watch this channel for B&B, don't worry, I'm not going to stop playing Burrows and Badgers. I like the idea of Arkworlde being a kind of like thing that will kind of sit alongside my Burrows and Badgers gaming. I kind of get the impression that Warp Miniatures and Arkworlde and Burrows and Badgers are, well, they're very similar. They're made by very similar kind of people. They are small family companies that need support. They need kind of like the gaming communities out there to kind of like join in and support them, which is a really exciting place to be. I often have people say to me, "Oh, you know, you should have more people subscribing to your channel. You should watch more stuff." You know, and I think that if I'd given up and I just made Necromunda videos, and I know there are loads of people who watch this channel because of my Necromunda videos, and hey, there is some Necromunda content coming very soon. I know if I'd given up and kind of like made loads of 40k content, I reckon I could get way more subscribers to this channel. But this channel is about supporting my hobby, and my hobby is about skirmish games and narrative games and things that I find a lot of fun. And I'm not in it to make vast sums of money, because if I was, I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing it because it just kind of like is an aside to my hobby. It runs parallel, and in some ways over the last 4 or 5 years has catalogued a lot of what I've done. And I've really kind of enjoyed it. So yeah, I like the look of Arkworlde. It ticks a lot of my boxes, like Burrows and Badgers. It's got small war bands, narrative style, rule system that I think it looks on the surface quite simple, but I reckon you can make it really quite complicated. The opportunity to make some very whimsical, cool scenery, and I think that means that it's very accessible. I like the figures. The figures are really cool. It's interesting looking at the classic figures on the Arkworlde on the Warp Miniatures website, because they are, you know, you could chart the improvements in Alex's sculpting, which is really cool, very exciting. I've got old and new ones of those. I like the figures because I like the materials they're made from. I like the metal ones. I like the resin ones. I like the fact that most of the ordinary characters are single cast figure pieces. There's not tons of sticking stuff together, and they are designed in a way that makes them great fun to paint. And I've painted already quite a fair few. I've painted a bunch of Halflings, I've painted a bunch of Orcs. My wife Heidi has jumped in and started painting the Beast Man types. I can't remember what they're called, Beast Folk. So from that point of view, yeah, they're clearly showing to me that there's something that I want to do. I want to paint. Which is really, really cool. So from that point of view, it's an opportunity for us to tell stories, play games and tell stories in a different way with a different bunch of characters. I love Burrows and Badgers and the anthropomorphic animal side of things, but actually I've always loved Halflings. I love fantasy stories. I love kind of like Terry Pratchett type of stuff, and this really kind of suits that as well. So we're certainly going to be doing a bunch of Arkworlde gaming over the winter time, along with other stuff as well. So you're going to have to watch this space from that point of view. Downsides to Arkworlde: some of the toys are quite expensive. You've got a choice. You buy it in some cases, well, whether you want metal sets or resin sets. I found that the resin figures so far have been a clearer kind of like more defined, better defined kind of model to paint, but I like the heft of a metal figure. It's really difficult. But yeah, there are a number of really lovely models you can get. The range is growing all the time, I think. But the figures are kind of pricey in some cases for what you're getting, but then you only need half a dozen figures to play, so you know, those two things balance themselves out. You don't need 100 models to play this game. You need 6. You know, the starter sets are 5, 6, 7, 8 figures total. So from that point of view, I think the buy-in is pretty cheap. You can get the rules as a downloadable PDF. You can get all the different force lists and bits and pieces. They're all downloadable PDFs off the Warp Miniatures website, which is very cool. And I get the impression that there's very much an active kind of community, you know, a live version of the rules, that kind of thing. I know to many of you that this is not news. Arkworld is not a new game. It's been around some time. It's already on its 2nd edition and then some. So, and I mean, when I went and thought, well, I can have a look at this, and it's been on my radar for some time. I've been on groups on Facebook and that kind of thing, but I've never really dived in. I went away and had a look on YouTube for other stuff, and there's stuff that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. So I think this is kind of interesting way to kind of like, have a fresh look at this game system, 2nd edition. Whole load of bunch of new figures. So what am I going to be doing for it? Well, I definitely think that I'm going to be making some specific scenery for some of the different factions. One big difference between this game and Burrows and Badgers is the fact that you've got definite factions with definite figures that go with those factions. Nothing to stop you bringing other figures in. And it is a miniatures agnostic game to a certain extent, although like B&B, why would you use other figures to play Arcworld when the Arcworld figures are so great? In the same way that why would you go and find other figures to play B&B when Michael Lovejoy's figures are so great? I apologise to both Alex and Michael right now because I can't help drawing parallels between the two games. But in this case, they're great parallels to draw because they're two really good sets of figures that are being made, two kind of innovative war sets of rules, and two very similar kind of companies from that point of view, which I think is super exciting. And I'm very pleased as Magrathea Builder Worlds to make videos and make scenery for both of those games. So my plans then, I love the Halflings. I've always loved Halflings in different systems, and I'm going to start playing Lord of the Rings Scouring of the Shires campaign. Loads of Halflings in that. I need to make a bunch of Halfling scenery. So there's Halfling scenery coming very, very soon. I also absolutely love the Orcs in Arkworld because they've got this kind of like swamp people, big hat, dungaree wearing Louisiana bayou redneck alligator hunter kind of like feel to them, and I feel some swamp rafts and various other bits and pieces coming on there. So there's going to be scenery being made for them very soon too. And then forests. What I haven't done a lot with B&B is make forests and natural kind of scenery. I always stick to making buildings, and what I want to do is have a go at making some rivers and some waterfalls and that kind of thing. Some undead barrow mounds are coming too. So there's a lot of kind of stuff that I haven't made recently that will work really, really well for Arkworld. So if you're an Arkworld player, I hope to take inspiration from this. Along with that, the Imperial figures and other kind of characters, they live in kind of like fancy kind of towns, and they will be an absolute perfect fit for the new Magrathea Builder World scratch building kits we're producing. The cottage kit is just about to come out, just finishing the instructions for that. And the prototype for Forge has been done, so we're very excited about that too. So I hope that you might dip a toe in the water of a new game system if you haven't already. Stick it on your Christmas list. Yeah, go along. At the end of this month, the end of November, you can go and visit Warp Miniatures. They're opening a store in Nottingham, which is very cool too. And I hope to get along there at some point. Alex, I'm going to come and visit you at some point. But yeah, if you're looking for something different, a little bit different, you want to use your same kind of like scenery you use your other fancy games, this is a good place to start. So please do join me, Magrathea Builder Worlds, and my mates, Spirit of the Game, as we dive into some Arkworld gaming and look for other Arkworld related videos coming to you very soon. This has been Magrathea Builder Worlds. I'll see you next time. Wow. Oh, better have another look at some of the toys. Come on, I've been painting quite a bit recently.